Okay, Matthew, do stay with us as we move on to our next story.
Yeah.
And media reports have confirmed that the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group has completed its transit towards the Middle East near Iran. It was redirected from the South China Sea to the Persian Gulf region to provide strategic options following Trump's warning to Iran's supreme leader after nationwide deadly protests in the country. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has reported moving into a fortified underground shelter in Tehran after senior military and security officials assessed a heightened risk of a potential US attack. According to reports, the supreme leader's third son has assumed day-to-day management of his father's office and is serving as the principal channel of communication with Iran's executive branches. Matthew, of course, a possible US strike has been on the minds of the people in Iran and the people around the world since, of course, Donald Trump claimed that help was coming to the people of Iran after these protests. However, the protests have now died down, but the threat from the United States is still there, especially now with this aircraft carrier being moved over to the Persian Gulf. Do you expect the United States to strike Iran? And if so, do you think it will be sooner rather than later?
I don't know if the United States is going to strike Iran, but I think that this is a distinct possibility, or they wouldn't be sending the Armada, the Abraham Lincoln strike force group, a large assembly of United States fighting vessels over to the Middle East. I think that I think it is likely, although not guaranteed, that the United States is going to take some sort of military action, especially considering Donald Trump's enthusiasm or his willingness to strike, to obliterate aspects of Iran's nuclear program earlier this year. So no one should doubt President Trump's resolve on this particular issue. How the United States is going to go about acting, I'm not really sure. But probably, it's not guaranteed, but probably they are going to do something. They were holding off for a few days, reportedly at the urging of Israel, because Israel didn't feel that it was in a position to withstand, to effectively deal with any potential retaliatory attacks, with missiles and so on that Iran may launch on it as a result of a U.S. Incursion or attack on Iran. So, there's been a lot of delay. There's been some, diplomatic level gamesmanship, and war is deceit. So, so. It's difficult to know exactly what is going on, but I think if you're going to have the U.S. Navy parked off the shores of Iran, I think there's a good chance that the U.S. Navy is going to do something, and that may be an attack on Iran. Though I don't know what shape that is going to take. They're going to have to, wipe out or seriously degrade the Revolutionary Guard troops, because that is a large part of the mullah's power in Iran. It's like basically like the SS in Nazi Germany, and you got to wipe them out if you're going to be able to take out Iran as a threat to its neighbors, particularly Israel in the area.
And Matthew, how do you think the American people will respond to Donald Trump if he did indeed strike Iran, attempt regime change? Of course, it's not an easy thing to conduct. Donald Trump, of course, campaigning on a mandate of not dragging the United States into forever wars in the Middle East. How would you think that the U.S. public will respond if Donald Trump does indeed take direct military action on Iran?
Well, Republicans who voted for Trump despite his, voted for him, for Trump, knowing that he wanted to have a hands-off policy, that didn't want to get involved in new wars in the around the world, don't seem to have a problem with what President Trump has been doing in Iran with the the attack on the nuclear facility, and in Venezuela and in other places. They seem to be cheering him on. I think that you have a sensitivity. Whether it goes for the rest of the population is not entirely clear. However, there's a thing in American politics and culture nowadays. Americans don't like the idea of U.S. soldiers. The expression is having boots on the ground. They don't like the idea of U.S. soldiers actually entering the territory of another country and staying there and fighting a war. If you conduct something that doesn't require a military occupation, that's just a brief appearance on the territory of the enemy, like in Venezuela, when they were only there for an hour or a couple of hours in Venezuela in order to do the operation to capture President Nicolas Maduro. They're fine with that. I guess an analogy is, it's like a video game. If it's like a little video game war and nobody actually on the American side dies, they're happy with it. But if you actually get ground troops involved, that's when you're going to meet resistance with the American public, which is what makes me it causes me to be inclined to think that any strike against Iran is going to be an attack on their facilities. It's not going to be, probably won't be a full-fledged invasion, because Americans get very sensitive, both parties, Republicans and Democrats. They don't like it when American soldiers come home in body bags.
Indeed. Matthew, do stay with us as we once again stay in the region and we move on to our next story. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently spoke with Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, focusing on the ongoing efforts to combat ISIS. They discussed the transfer and detention of ISIS extremists in Iraq, as well as the country's diplomatic efforts to repatriate citizens swiftly for justice. Rubio emphasized that Iraq's government cannot effectively serve its own interests if controlled by Iran. The conversation also highlighted Iraq's need for a strong independent stance in dealing with ongoing security and political challenges. Matthew joins us once again. Matthew, what can you tell us about the dialogue between Iraq and the United States, and of course the relationship overall and of the current government there?
Well, it's being depicted as just a friendly telephone call between Marco Rubio and the Prime Minister of Iraq. It strikes me as it was kind of a diplomatically worded warning that the United States thinks Iran has too much influence in Iraq. Iran has paramilitary groups there, and it has political parties, Shiite political parties that are influencing the government of Iraq, and Marco Rubio is not happy about that, and he's urging them to get rid of the Iranian influence in Iraq. I don't know if, I suspect that's easier said than done. It's a powerful country that's right beside Iraq, and you're always going to have some level of cooperation between the two countries, even though they have been enemies at times. But yeah, I think Marco Rubio thinks Iran has too much influence in Iraq, and he wants to end it. So it was a warning. I don't know if there are any strings attached, but it's sending a message to Iraq that it needs to get its house in order and stop allowing Iran to influence. As I say, whether the warning will go heeded or not is not clear. It probably depends on any potential military action that the United States takes against Iran in the next few days. If the United States hits Iran, attacks Iran, as President Trump seems to be saying it will do, I imagine that the warning from Marco Rubio will begin to be taken very seriously. If it doesn't, then maybe not.
Indeed. Do stay with us, Matthew, as we move on. Oh, apologies. We are letting you go. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure.